Martin Luther was one of the most prolific writers of all time. If you ever want to see some of his writings, just sometime knock on my office door, and I'll show you on my bookcase shelves upon shelves of works they're called Luther's works, and they are 57 volumes of about size 10 font print of solid writings. But Luther was more than just a writer. He also was a hymn writer. He wrote 36 hymns. And the one hymn that he is most famous for it's called "A Mighty Fortress is Our God." It's based upon Psalm 46. It's a hymn that celebrates the sovereign power of God over the forces of everything on earth and the forces of everything that are spiritual as well. And during the time of the Reformation, it became immensely popular. It was sung all over. It became literally the national hymn of Protestant Germany. It was sung in churches. It was sung by the leaders of the Reformation, and the common people would sing it over the protests of the Catholic priests. And what I always like whenever you sing a hymn is to find out why that hymn was penned. And so oftentimes on a Sunday morning when you see a hymn, there's always like a little blurby, a little description that tells you what's the background of this hymn and why it was written. So why was "A Mighty Fortress is Our God"? Why was it written? There are 7 different accounts describing why it was written. All of them are different. The one that seems to be most factual is the one that focuses on what was going on in Europe at that time. During the Middle Ages, it was a time of great superstition. And just as black cats are associated with Halloween, and that's not a good thing, right? So back in the Middle Ages, the culture was very much afraid of evil spirits and witches. And so cats became associated with witchery and superstition and goblins and ghosts. And so cats kind of bore the brunt of it, and they were hunted and annihilated all across Europe. The effect of taking out all the cat population in Europe gave rise to the Black Plague. It originated with all of a sudden the explosion in population with rats that became the carrier of diseases, and without cats to take them out, the Black Plague eventually took out tens of millions of people. The Black Plague was inching closer and closer to Luther's hometown of Wittenberg, Germany. He wrote "A Mighty Fortress is Our God" as the plague came to the gates of Wittenberg. Because sometimes it's when you see, or all of a sudden, that troubling, tough time is all of a sudden right there, you really don't pay attention or cry out to God in help. Psalm 46, that was the basis for "A Mighty Fortress is Our God," is God trying to get our attention in tough times. He's like a football coach that waves a football player over to the sideline, and the coach puts his arms on either side of the shoulder pads and looks the player right in the eyes and says, "Listen, do I got your attention?" It's a parent who calls a child and wants to know, "Are you listening to me right now? Listen up." It's God looking at us and saying, "Do I have your attention?" Because oftentimes, tough times may be the only time that God gets our attention. And tough times may be the one time that we need to know a mighty fortress is our God. In tough times, there are a couple of things that God tells us to do. But oftentimes when we hit the tough times, before we listen to what God has to say, we try to handle the tough times on our own. So sometimes we hit tough times and then we wallow in self-pity. And we're in our misery and we're feeling sorry for ourselves and we're thinking, you know what? It seems as if God doesn't care about me and I feel like such a loser. Or other times, we have the tough times that hit and then we try to handle it all on our own. And so we say, it's kind of like the phrase that is in Boston right now. It's called Boston Strong. And so where do you find your strength? It's not God strong, but it's found inside. It's human strong. I'm going to find and unlock the strength and the courage that is found inside of me. Other times, we turn on God in tough times. And we say, God, this is not fair. And it gives rise to the most familiar of questions. Lord, if I'm a believer in you, why would you allow something bad to happen to someone who loves you? So when we come up to those tough times in life, instead of wallowing in self-pity, instead of turning on God or turning within ourselves to find our own strength, Psalm 46 invites us to do two things. Psalm 46 verse 10. Number 1, be still. And then number 2, know that I am God. That's the instruction from God. In tough times, be quiet. And then you will know that He is God. Psalm 46 begins, God is our refuge and our fortress, an ever-present help in times of trouble. That's the first verse of it. And it's a description of all that God says. In order to know who I am, you have to be still and then listen to what I'm going to tell you about who I am. God says, I am a refuge. It's a safe haven. It's a place that makes you feel safe and secure. It's more than your house. It's more than your backyard. In Old Testament times, God designated cities of safe refuge. If you would accidentally kill one of your neighbors or countrymen, and you know right then, if you killed someone, the Bible was clear, you shed blood, then your blood shall be shed. You can imagine the person is just filled with fear, knowing now I'm the one who's going to be hunted down. But God designated cities of safe haven that you could run into, and there the people who were chasing after you could not go inside. You were safe until the matter could be all worked out. God is saying, I am your refuge. I am your safe haven. In times of trouble, run and be safe inside of my walls. Do you do that in times of trouble, in your tough times? Or how often when we hit tough times, do we try to take care of the trouble ourselves? Do you know that these are the main reasons why people self-medicate themselves, either with alcohol or with substances? Do you know this is the reason why so many of us, when times of trouble come, we kind of shut down and we cocoon ourselves trying to find an escape? We'll go to Disney World. We will go and have a couple of days. I need to take to relax and just escape from it all. You will find that escape, but it will not last. God says, I am your refuge. When you escape to me, you will always be safe, not just for a moment, but for all time. God says, and listen to this. He says, and then know that I am your God. Because He's not just your refuge. Within the walls of God, you will find strength for the times when you have nothing left in you. When your hands are by your side, you wake up in the morning and you have absolutely no energy. When you feel discouraged, when you know that you're depressed, God says, know that I am your God. Turn to me, because then you'll be able to plug into a power source that has nothing to do with your strength and your ability. Know that I am God. I will be your strength. Psalm 46 then says, and I am your present help in trouble. I love that. God says, when you escape inside of my walls, then you will find help. But it's not a distant help, something that you will find somewhere in the future. It's not a past help. He says, I am an ever-present help in time of trouble. For the moment that you need him, at that very moment, God says, I am there with you. At that very present moment. Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10, one of my favorite Bible passages, says this, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. God says, do not fear, don't fret, don't worry, do not be afraid. Why? Because he says, I am with you. One of the greatest, if you were going to say, what should I remember from today? It's not going to be any of the words I'm telling you right now, but just let this little phrase stick with you, because it is the greatest promise that when you don't have a Bible available to you, you need to have it in your head. And it's simply the fact that God says, I am with you. That's it. It was the very last promise, the very last words, as Jesus is ascending up into heaven, and his disciples are a little afraid. There goes Jesus, there goes my security blanket. And Jesus promised, no, I am with you. It's when you are in a hospital bed that you need to hear, I am with you. It's when you feel betrayed and you don't feel loved by someone else. It's God who says, I am with you. It's for the times that you have an argument and you feel a little bullied. There is that promise of God, I am with you. It's a promise that Jesus said and then proved because he carried out on the cross. I am with you. You know the Golden Gate Bridge? I've seen it once when I was a little kid. It was built in the 1930s. Just huge. It's one of the most massive bridges ever. And it took 4 years to be able to build. But in the first half of its construction, 23 construction workers fell from the Golden Gate Bridge. And a lot of them died when they hit the water. So construction stopped for a time. When it resumed, it was only after they had spent $100,000, and back in the early 1930s, that's a huge sum of money. But underneath the bridge, they built a safety net. So for the last half of the construction of the Golden Gate Bridge, 8 more workers, they did fall, but none of them died. And amazingly, they found out later that over the last 2 years, the efficiency of the workers went up 25%. Why do you think that is? There's a net underneath. And when you know that there's a net underneath you, you don't have to be afraid. Listen to Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 27. The eternal God is your refuge, and underneath you are the everlasting arms of the Father. Underneath you, your safety net in life is in place. You may go through tough times, no doubt about it. But isn't it nice now, instead of reacting to troubles that happen to you in life, instead of being afraid and dismayed, now you know that if you fall, your safety net is there to catch you, and you will be safe. That alone gives you a confidence to face whatever you're going through in life right now. You can face it with confidence, which is why Psalm 46, verse 2 says, the mountains may fall into the heart of the sea, and you don't even have to care about it. Why? Because God is in control. You don't have to worry anymore about the effects of your sin. Why? Because the cross of Christ is in control. Because you can go to the cross and find refuge from your guilt. Your conscience is safe and secure in the net of Jesus Christ. It's well known that Martin Luther, one of the most influential men that has ever lived on earth, he suffered from depression. In his tough times, he would invite over to his house a bunch of his friends, and they would just sing. Sing what? A mighty fortress is our God. After Luther died, his friends, some of them were exiled, and they were banished. They were thrown in prison. Some of them were even killed. What did they sing? A mighty fortress is our God. One of the battles for the King of Sweden, when he was going into one of the bloodiest battles of the Reformation, he and his army sang, a mighty fortress is our God. It's so much more than a hymn. It's God's words. If you want a safe haven and a refuge, because troubles will come in your life, but now instead of reacting to them, this word of God is preparing you for them. For future troubles in life, may Psalm 46 be your battle cry hymn. I know that I have a fortress, a safe haven. This is my God. So tell yourself, be still, and let God know. So God can let you know that He is your fortress. Amen.